Hello everyone, my name is Lisa Giffard and welcome to my home here in Hillsville in the heart of the Yarra Valley. I am the owner and director of artisan pasta brand Yarra Valley Pasta that was established back in 1997 by my mother Maria. Now today we are celebrating obviously the spring in the Yarra Valley and the garden party that is happening this weekend. Some of you have been tuning in to that and really hope that you're enjoying it. With the wonder of the internet, we are going to do a lovely live feed with our friend Julia Busatil Nishimura, who is in Melbourne today. We would have loved for Julia to have come out, but obviously with the stage 4 restrictions still in place and the 5 kilometre rule, Julia wasn't able to come out, but hopefully when the restrictions are eased, she will be racing to get out here to come and visit. So Julia, hello and welcome to my home, and today we're going to have a bit of a chat about pasta and some different recipes and some of your stories, and more so the release of your new book, which is A Year of Simply Family Food, which is absolutely fantastic. So Julia, now I'm going to hand over to you. You're going to tell us a little bit about your fantastic book and how you managed to write this book with 2 baby boys, because I know I couldn't do anything like that. So you're going to tell me how you did it.
Hi Lisa, so lovely to be in your kitchen in Hillsville in person. That's right, so my new cookbook, A Year of Simple Family Food, came out about 4 weeks ago, so in end of August, September, and it's just a collection of recipes kind of geared around seasonal cooking. It's all about home cooking, cooking for your loved ones, and it's just really fresh, simple, easy food that people can kind of, cook during the week, but also some recipes that, a bit of a weekend project, things that you can make with your family on the weekends as well. So it's, nice to have a new book out in the world, especially during the pandemic. It's, obviously been a little bit tricky to do all of our usual things. As you said, I've got two young boys. I have a 5-year-old and I've got a 9-month-old. So I was actually pregnant when I was shooting this book. It's some challenges, but also a really nice opportunity to kind of have family around. There's lots of pictures of them in the book, and nice for it to come out into the world this year. So I'm super excited to be sharing a recipe from that book with you all today, and so excited to be cooking alongside it.
Good. Well, I take my hat off to you because I can't even make a cup of tea without my 3 boys swarming me. So it's absolutely lovely. And one of the recipes that you're actually going to talk us through today is the beautiful peachy with the lemon mascarpone, which is looks absolutely lovely. Are you ready to take us through that? I'm going to pour a glass of rosé and I'm going to sit and listen to you do that, and then we're just going to sort of swap and tell some different stories. And what have you got there?
I've got the rosé too.
Which one's
That's what I picked.
Good.
The Mac Forbes. I'm going to pour myself a glass as well.
Yes, good.
I picked the Mac Forbes as well. So summery and super excited to be able to have, picnics in the park and be drinking a nice glass of this. And I thought it would go really nicely with my pasta today. So great minds.
Cheers to you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay. Are you ready?
That's right, Lisa. So
okay, I'm going to pop this over here. All right.
I'm going to be making a pretty traditional Italian pasta shape. It's called peachy. It's also got several other names depending on where you are around Italy. And it doesn't require any tools or any equipment, just your hands and a wooden board if you happen to have one. And then with a beautiful kind of spring, summery lemon mascarpone sauce, which isn't all that traditional. Traditionally, it's paired with more of like a tomato garlic sauce with this very famous Tuscan garlic called aglione, or with breadcrumbs. You find it with wild boar, ragu. It's a typical pasta shape from Tuscany. So Tuscany kind of has the mare and montagne, the mountains and the sea. So you find lots of different pairings. But this one is a really light, kind of simple, fresh sauce that you can pair with it. And you can add things, in spring, it would be beautiful to add some broad beans or some peas. I've actually got some of the Yarra Valley caviar, which I thought we could, the salmon caviar, which we could put on top as well. Yeah, you guys are very lucky down there with all that beautiful produce.
You're lucky to get that because I can't find a jar in the Yarra Valley, so it must be all making its way down towards you in Melbourne.
We've taken it all in Melbourne.
Well, I know a lot of the producers are doing a huge amount of work trying to get their products down into Melbourne, obviously, because we can't have visitors. So, yes, you're very lucky to have that.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, exactly. So I thought I would just start with the dough. It's a really simple dough that you can kind of make a little bit in advance as well. And it's a really nice pasta shape to get all of your family around or your friends around that you're allowed in your house in these restrictions. And, many hands make light work with this dough. So I'll just run through the recipe really quickly and I'll show everyone how we make the pichi. So in the bowl here I've got 400 grams of 00 flour, so it's really finely milled, soft Italian flour. If you don't have that, you could just use plain flour. I'm just going to put this on the board here. And if you want to do it in a big bowl, if you don't have a board, that's totally fine as well. I'm going to add a really good pinch of salt. And with my hands, I'm just going to make a well. I'm going to add some beautiful olive oil into the well, just about a tablespoon. And then here in this jug, I've got 200 mils of really warm water. So that kind of helps the gluten relax and it makes it a lot easier to knead the dough. So I'm just going to add it a little bit first. And I'm going to use my fingers. You could use a fork. Your hands do the job really well. And I'm just going to slowly incorporate the flour into this kind of oily water mix. And then when it becomes a little bit tricky to mix with your hands, it becomes a little bit stiffer, we're going to just keep adding the water. Julie. And every flour is different, so you might not necessarily need the whole 200 mils, or you might need a little bit more. But this dough is typically a little bit softer than traditional pasta dough because you need to roll it out by hand into these long, fat, thick spaghetti. So just going to keep adding this quick slowly so we don't cause a water disaster.
It almost looks like the consistency of a scone mix, if you can, relate it to that.
It does look a bit like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, just that sort of gooiness. And I can see how you're sort of pulling it together. And that olive oil, I can't say I've used a lot of olive oil when I've made pasta.
I believe pici originally comes from the verb appiccare, which is kind of a bit sticky in Italian. So we're just going to keep working this.
Yep, great.
Wash it in. And then I'm going to use a pastry scraper. So I'm just going to use the pastry scraper to get kind of any excess dough off my hands. And just use the pastry scraper to kind of help me get all of that flour onto this quite sticky wet dough. Board. I'm going to make a mess and just really knead into the dough. So this usually takes, the actual making of the dough doesn't take that long, but you do need to knead it for about 10 minutes until it is really nice and soft. I'm just going to get all of this dough off my hands so it's nice and clean. I have prepared one earlier, so you don't have to watch me eating for 10 minutes, Lisa. I'm mixing, I'm just getting all of those last bits. We want to kind of have a really dry, clean board, so no flour left behind on the board. So I'm just going to scrape it off.
Is that a special board? I know my nonna had a board that she would have in her home, and then when she would come to visit us, she would bring the board with her. Like no other board would do. She had this incredible board, and it had certainly
Yeah.
It had certainly done its work. It was amazing, and I think my cousin.
I love that. Yeah,
still has
yeah, this is a pasta board, so it's made in Italy, and it has a special wooden ridge underneath. So when you're kneading, the board doesn't go flying everywhere. It kind of locks onto the table. So they really, yeah, this one has had a good workout. Almost got all of that dough. There's still just a few little bits, but it's quite sticky still, so we could get all of that flour.
Yep. When you make your egg pasta, what's your ratio of eggs to the flour? Roughly, what do you like to use?
So I kind of stick with the classic 100 grams of flour and 1 egg. Unless I'm doing a filled pasta where I tend to use a little bit more egg yolks just so it's a little bit silkier and doesn't expand as much in the water. Do you do that ratio, Lisa, the 1 to 1?
Yeah, I guess too. I'm sort of thinking of in the production kitchen. We're using the durum semolina. A one mix for us, a smaller batch would be a sort of 10 kilos. And we would use about, we actually don't use a whole egg, we use a pasteurized liquid egg, so it's about close to sort of 3 kilos of that, and another say 7, or 3 litres I should say, about another 7 sort of kilos of the flour would give us our total mix in order to make the batch. So but yeah, at home, definitely.
I imagine, making pasta at home is so different than, making it on the larger scale of what you do in Hillsville. A whole lot of, thought goes into that, I think.
Definitely very different making it at home than the pasta shop. In the early days when Mum started making the pasta, we had a very small machine, and we used to crack the eggs in, and pretty much the same sort of ratio, and she'd get the flour. It would only mix no more than probably 10, it was about 6 kilos at a time, and she used to stand there and it would mix, and then with her hand she would, the dough would come out, and then she would roll it into these little industrial rollers. Yeah, so we've actually got that little machine in a cabinet in the shed. It's like a museum piece. But yeah, that's a very, very different scenario, obviously, than to making it home. But with my nonna, we used to do that together.
So, yeah. So the dough is pretty much ready. It does need a little bit more kneading. You just want it to be quite smooth, and you need to let the dough rest for about half an hour just for that gluten to relax. So I just kind of put an upturned bowl on top. You can obviously wrap it in plastic wrap if that's what you have. An upturned bowl for half an hour does the job really well. So I'm going to kind of let that go for a minute. That can be needed a bit later. We'll have that for dinner probably. And I've got one that I made earlier. And I don't know if you can see the difference, but it's so silky smooth. It's really soft, it's relaxed, it's going to be really easy to...
Lovely. It's taken you absolutely no time to do that, a couple of minutes. So
exactly.
Yeah, very easy.
Quicker than going to the supermarket, except I did see your pasta in my local today and I'm very tempted. I'm a big fan of your spinach and ricotta.
Ravioli. That is our most popular ravioli, and I think it is unbelievable. And there are a lot of other brands out there that make a spinach and ricotta, but ours, for some reason, it's our biggest seller. That and our free-range egg spaghettini. So, we can do all these lovely, fancy combinations, like what we're doing today, which is smoked trout and goat's cheese, but. Though that particular ravioli, has been made in my family for as long as I can remember. So classic.
Incredible. I love it, and it's so good to have a packet in the freezer.
Good staple.
So this is actually a half batch of dough because I have already kind of rolled some out already into these long spaghetti. So I'm just going to the easiest way to do this really is just to take your rolling pin and give it a little roll. It doesn't have to be super thin. And then, you know, an egg dough where you want it to be quite dry to put it through the machine and things like that. This is quite a wet, or you know, a soft dough. And I've also got a little bowl of water here in case my hands start to dry out, so I can just dab them into the water. And then we're just going to cut some lengths, so no particular size, just to help us get started to roll them out. So I've just got these kind of lengths here. And then all you need to do is with the palms of your hand, start from the middle and just work your way out. And you know, if they're a little bit irregular or a little bit uneven, that is totally fine. They're homemade, you know, and good pitchy, you know, has those kind of indentations of someone's hand. You don't really want it to look like, you know, machine made for this one.
That's right. Julia, who taught you this dish? Was there someone in particular that taught you, or?
Yeah, this was taught. So I lived in southern Tuscany, so an area called Maremma, and I learned to make this dish there. So you know, you would know in Italy, you know, you have pasta every day for lunch. Not a huge serve, but you know, a small plate of pasta, and it is something that is really treasured, that kind of time sitting down with your family and friends, a nice glass of wine and a small plate of pasta. And so yeah, I learned how to make this one there. But the sauce is inspired actually by the River Cafe in London. They make a similar sauce with their pasta. And it's so simple. And I mean, this takes, you know, this is really fun for the kids as well to make. It's, you know, if you can do Play-Doh, you can make pasta. So that's our first one done, and it is really quick. And you just want to have a dish or a bowl of that semola, the durum wheat semolina like you were talking about, just to stop it from sticking. So you just want to coat it in that semola. And you basically just continue. We're just going to cut some lengths. And again, have our kind of flat hands, because you don't really want it to be super bumpy from your knuckles, if that makes sense. So we're just going to use the kind of flat part of our palms and just roll.
There's nice heat coming from your hands as well, which is...
Exactly. And the board, you know, that's why wood is so important when making fresh pasta by hand, like these kind of hand roll shapes like orecchiette, picci, cavatelli. The wooden board really is kind of stops it slipping. It's got that grip. It's got that warmth.
That's terrific.
And so they're really quick to make, and you know, they have a really good bite to them. They're not, you know, a delicate pasta like ravioli or anything like that. They're always going to be really chewy, but I really love that chew in pasta. I think it's, you know, it's really satisfying to eat, and yeah, super delicious. So I'm just going to roll a few more, and then we'll make the sauce, which doesn't even need a pan. It just heats up over the pot of boiling water.
Your Maltese heritage, we were talking about the ravioli before.
Yes.
I have a friend whose family get together and make quite large ravioli.
Yes.
And generally just filled with ricotta.
Yes.
Anything else? Any other sort of variations on that, or just good ricotta?
Not really. So we call them ravioli in Maltese, and it's basically what the food of my childhood. I grew up eating that. I think that's why I love your spinach and ricotta ravioli so much. It reminds me of the ones, you know, we used to eat as kids. So usually just ricotta. So it's ricotta, salt and pepper. Some people put an egg. You can put parsley in as well if you'd like, but yeah, it is bigger. They're quite large and quite more robust. Like, they're not delicate. They're more similar to the kind of durum wheat. Often you put half semolina flour, half double zero plain. Ricotta is, you know, we eat that a lot in Malta. So super delicious. That's what we used to have, and you just have them simply with, we call it a salsa, which is a tomato sauce with those. Really satisfying to eat. All right, so that's the other one. I'm just going to keep dipping it in. I'll just do one more, and then I'm going to show you how we do the sauce, which is really quite quick and simple.
I've had something similar to that.
And when you rest them properly, they are really so really easy. I'm just going to turn on my little induction stove. Okay, perfect. So I've got, I haven't done the full batch, but that's all right. This is probably enough for 3 people here, or two and a half. See how we go. So I've just got that sitting in the semolina flour.
Yep.
And then for the sauce, you just want to prepare it in a bowl that can sit over a pot of water. So this is actually my serving bowl, which I'm going to use. But you could use any bowl that is going to sit over the stove and isn't going to break, obviously, so it has to be heat proof. We're just going to warm through this. It doesn't need to be cooked on a pan, in a pan or anything like that. And what goes in here is some beautiful mascarpone, which is super, rich and luxurious, and it's really going to coat the pasta beautifully. So I've got 150 grams of mascarpone in here. You can use a mixture. I know mascarpone can be quite expensive, so you could use a mixture of cream and mascarpone. I've done this just with, really good pure cream, and it works beautifully as well. So we've got the mascarpone. I'm just going to add a little bit of olive oil, about 2 tablespoons. I've got 70 grams of Parmigiano Reggiano. So just Parmesan cheese. My little local deli breaks it up for me. So you can buy the lots of Parmesan and they grate it for you at the counter. So I've got that going in. I've also got the juice of 2 lemons. You can do 1. I like it quite lemony, but you can always reduce that to 1 lemon or add 1 to start with and then add, the second one afterwards. That's our lemon juice, and also some zest of a lemon. So I'm just going to microplane that in. And this is actually the sauce I serve when I do my pasta classes in Melbourne. It's vegetarian, it's really light, it's a real winner. So it's really satisfying and delicious to eat.
That is very lemony.
And that's it for the sauce. So that's, all of the ingredients. I will actually add some pepper because, mascarpone and parmesan really, do well with some pepper. And I will add a tiny bit of salt, but it does have the parmesan in it, so I don't want to go too overboard. So that's the sauce there. And we're just going to put it over the pot of simmering water. And that's just going to slowly heat up. And when it gets a bit warm, we can start whisking it. And then I'll put the pasta in to cook. And the pasta only takes, 4 minutes to cook, depending on how thick you've made it. If you've done really thick kind of noodles, it's going to take maybe 7 minutes, but this should take around 4 minutes. So that's what's going to get up on the boil. And I may as well roll a few more pitchy. Where are your family from, Lisa, in Italy?
We are from the Molise region, which is just south of Abruzzi. The town is called Frosinone. So if you were to drive from Rome, about 2.5 hours southeast, and head in towards the mountains. So it's probably from there about an hour's drive to the Adriatic coast. So my mum came out when she was 4.5 on the boat in 1954 with her mum and younger brother, and my dad came out years later. He was 19, so I think 1964 or something, and so there's still a lot of family over there, lots of cousins, and the town's actually quite well known for obviously being high up in altitude. They graze a lot of cattle and sheep up in the mountains. So the region's quite known for, you know, the lovely scamorza and the, you know, the lovely mozzarella and cascavallo. So in the town, actually, I still have cousins that are doing demonstrations and things. So yeah, a very long history there of artisans, the cheesemakers, and yeah, obviously my nonnas, both my nonnas, coming from one in particular came from a big family, and it's what they did. They made lots of food all the time, and you know, they tell me lots of stories, or did tell me lots of stories of you know, the harvesting summer fruits and vegetables and preserving them so that they could you know, get through their long cold winters, and they were able to, you know, to give their children you know, obviously all the fruits and veggies and things that they needed, and very robust and resilient people. And my grandmothers have passed away. Very resourceful women that could, you know, find ingredients and just, you know, make up a meal and feed a whole lot of people with, you know, with so many simple ingredients that they had in their pantries. So yeah, very, very inspiring women. I had one grandmother that was very sort of slow, and, you know, everything was was sort of almost angelic, and then the other one was just, you know, very, you know, she was very quick and sharp, and so yeah, I think I've got both grandmothers influencing me in a lot of the cooking that I do, and yeah, and the style and the dishes that I present. So yeah. So.
Yeah, wow. And so amazing that you can kind of bring all of those stories to Hillsville. Like, it's such a special kind of thing you've created in the Yarra Valley, you know, that people don't often associate with the Yarra Valley, you know, but it's so nice. Like, I've been to your shop, and it's, yeah, such a great vibe.
It is. You know, we've been around for a while now. So, you know, 1997, we're coming up to 24
Wow.
years next year. And, you know, we've seen a lot of changes. And in the early days, as I said, Mum would just make, you know, a little batch of pasta, and she'd stand there and, you know, a little pot of bolognese sauce, and no sooner had that finished, you know, it had sold out, and she'd have to make it all again, and just didn't really, you know the reaction that she was going to get all those years ago from customers. And, you know, in Hillsville 24 years ago, it was a very, very different place to what it is now. You know, I guess we could say we were trailblazers to a point, but you know, it was just a very, very natural progression for Mum to be able to, you know, she's such a great cook, and actually watching you do that now is bringing back a memory of in the
I was going to ask, did you?
Lots of that. You know, in the 1970s, their way of entertaining, particularly in a small country town, they would have progressive dinners, and so, you know, families would go to each other's house and from the school, and my mum would make handmade pasta, and she would have it hanging over the clothes rack, and these people would come in. So imagine, you know, a little country town in the 1970s.
Yeah.
They'd never seen anything like that before. They would walk in and see this pasta hanging over the, you know, the clothes horse, literally. And then when it was time to eat, you know, she would, you know, it would all go into the boiling water, and she would make it in front of them, and they talked about it for years and years. And, you know, the idea to set up the pasta business was, you know, everyone said, you know, Maria, you're such a good cook. We need good food here in the Yarra Valley. You know, you couldn't buy a bottle of olive oil, or you know, you couldn't get a piece of parmigiano anywhere.
Yes.
And I remember she coaxed the local delicatessen into getting parmesan in. He had no idea what she was talking about. So, you know,
Yes.
Yeah, just amazing. Yeah.
I mean, olive oil used to be only medicinal here. You know, you had to go to the pharmacy to buy olive oil before, you know, the mine. That's what, you know, beautiful stories like your mum, how, you know, they couldn't access all of those things, and they just had to do it for themselves. I totally relate. You know, my family was similar with the Maltese food. You know, we would grow all of our broad beans. You just couldn't buy it, you know, now the greengrocer. you know, we eat a lot of rabbit. It's quite common in Malta. You know, and you just kind of had to network, and we'd have friends bring over rabbits and things like, yeah, I just think it's such a quintessential Australian migrant story of, you know, missing those foods that remind you so much of home and having to kind of source them for yourself. You know, we're very lucky to be the, you know, recipients of all of that hard work and all of that, I guess, pioneering by those people, by our family who did that for us.
True, that's very true. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, and so, you know, Mum was amazing, and Dad and all of my family really, and helping to set that business up, and you know, we had our little cafe running, and you know, food that people couldn't get. Oh, yes. So I'm going to watch you now.
Okay, so the sauce, you know, as I've waited for the pasta water to come to the boil, I've just been stirring the sauce every now and then, and it is a beautiful kind of thick, luscious sauce now. I think you can see that it's really kind of all come together. The cheese, you can smell the cheese and the lemon and the pepper. So I'm just going to drop these in the boiling water. So they just need, once you've got them in, and the water's been salted quite well, so I'm just going to dust off any excess. You don't want to put too much of the semolina in. Yep. And then I'm just going to give it a little stir as it comes up to boil, just to make sure they're not sticking together. No.
No. I just want to clarify that with you.
No.
Because I say there's no point. There's no point doing that.
There's no point. It wastes, you know, beautiful olive oil. Yeah. And essentially, you want the sauce to stick to the pasta, not to slide off.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm with you. Yeah, no olive oil. Just a good handful of salt is perfect. This is just coming up to the boil again. And I don't know about you, Lisa, but I don't really put a lid on. If it's taking a long time to come to the boil, I might pop a lid on for half a minute till it gets the heat out. This is pretty strong. That's just going to take a few minutes. And then we just simply toss it in, you know, the serving bowls here ready to go. We toss it in, we can add a little bit more olive oil, and I've got some beautiful basil that we're going to put on top. And then it's a really, I've said it a few times, but it's really easy, you know, like that. I was finished rolling it while we were chatting, you know, it doesn't take long. And I think it's a beautiful way to slow down a little bit and not be so hurried with, you know, this year has taught us, I guess, that a lot of things are out of our control, and making pasta for me anyway is a really nice way to kind of stop for a moment and also have a beautiful meal for my family. So do you have a similar
in Melbourne? Look, obviously very different from us out here.
Yes.
You know, we have some acreage, so, you know, the boys in particular have been able to, you know, run outside, and, you know, we've had the fire pit going, and, you know, we've done lots of different types of cooking, lots of baking,
yes.
Because we've had the time, and it's been such a luxury.
Yeah, and are you completely out of restrictions now?
Am I out of production? Sorry.
Are you?
No, we are in Hillsville. We are part of the Yarra Ranges, which is classified as a municipality of Melbourne. So we are still in stage for restrictions like you.
Yep.
But lucky for us, you know, 5 kilometres, you know, we're able to walk up to Maroondah Reservoir with the boys, and, you know, do some lovely exercise around. And so it's, again, nice to have that, be out here in this environment, particularly with spring now coming on. You know, we've got that beautiful new growth that's coming through on all the trees. The blossoms are out. The magpies are swooping. And you know, and the sunshine, you know, the minute the sun shines, it's such a...
I mean, the weather has just made all of the difference, hasn't it? So the pasta's cooked now, and I'm just lifting it out with some tongs. You could strain it out, that's fine, but I'm not in my kitchen, so I'm just going to use some beautiful tongs to grab all of that pasta.
That water is flavoured as well, so, you know.
And then we're just going,
yeah.
So I'm just going to stir that pasta through. And I didn't use all of my dough, so there is a little bit extra sauce, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to give it a little crack of pepper. And some salt. We could put a little bit more olive oil on. And just some beautiful basil leaves on top.
Lovely.
And it's like a really, spring,
delicious,
beautiful. I don't know if you can see the sauce very well. But it's coating the pasta really lovely. And I'll put it on a plate actually. Because I might have some while you make your pasta, Lisa.
Okay. Luckily for me, I don't have to make the pasta from scratch. I know a lovely little place down the road that makes that for me. So, so I've been very, very lucky.
Very lucky. Very lucky.
I am. Oh, that looks so delicious.
It's really good. And I'm going to grab, here's my basil.
Have you got your
I'm just
wine?
going to put a little bit more basil on top.
Yeah, I think I need to pour another glass while I...
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, wow. That looks
And that's it finished for me. So yeah, it's really creamy, really smooth and zingy. Yeah. You can up the lemon, you can put your own twist on it. But it's a real, big favourite in my house. My 5-year-old loves this pasta. With some peas, you'll have the whole bowl.
That's beautiful, beautiful, lovely. Well,
so what are you making?
Okay, so I am going to be making a ravioli, and I'm going to sort of hand make a ravioli, or even like a little agnolotti. And this particular one is the, I'm going to turn my stove on while I'm going as well. It is an agnolotti or ravioli made with smoked trout and goat's cheese. Now, we have been making this product for, probably a good 23 years. And it came about when the Yarra Valley Wine Growers Association at the time, we'll put it this way, all those years ago, 25 years ago in the Yarra Valley, we all had to work very, very hard to, as a group, we had to work very, very hard to, promote our businesses. And the Yarra Valley back then was just sort of getting on its feet. And becoming well known as a premium grape growing region. So a group of fantastic marketers that were working within some of these wineries decided to launch what was called the Yarra Valley Wine Program, and it was we needed to, or the aim was, I should say, to get a lot of food and wine journalists visiting the Yarra Valley. So they were accommodated, they were fed, they were educated and on wine. And of course, back then, the Yarra Valley Regional Food Group had just started up as well. So there were a real sort of gang of us, I guess, who were, sort of ready and waiting and, passionate about our crafts and what we were doing at the time. So a friend of ours who was a chef at what was then the Iton on Yarra, it's now Rochford Wines. He came and said, right, girls, this is to my mother and I, come on girls, we need to do something really smart here. So he said, let's make a really fantastic ravioli. He said, I want to use trout and I want to use goat's cheese. And I thought, okay. So we decided to look at who we had in our group, and obviously the Yarra Valley Dairy back then was had just been established, probably couple of years before us, and Buxton Trout Farm, which is just over the spur in Buxton. Mitch and his family, his father actually was one of the first sort of commercial trout farmers in the country. And we sourced the trout from him, the cheese, of course, the goat's cheese from the Yarra Valley Dairy, and we came up with this smoked trout and goat's cheese ravioli, which is really beautiful, and particularly now for spring, really lovely, lots of beautiful flavours, and fantastic, matched with, lovely Chardonnay or the Semillons, and also the rosé here. So I'll first of all put together sort of the mix. I can't quite remember what the recipe was that I've written down. And Julia, just so you know, I'm not very good with recipes. I just sort of, put things together as I go. I'm going to take my jewellery off so that we don't have that ending up into the pasta. So the trout, as I said, comes from Buxton, and this is sort of a smoked, very smoky flavour. Now I've actually just filleted one whole trout, but you can actually buy them sort of like this, which are already filleted. And I have just sort of boned that, always careful, of course, not to have bones in them. You will often find little hairline bones in. So put some of that in. A bit of ricotta. Now, the ricotta that we use comes from a company called Floridia Cheese, and they have been supplying us since the day the shop opened. Now, most of their milk comes from local farms here in the Yarra Valley and pretty much all over Victoria. And they are just fantastic people to deal with. The milk pretty much gets picked up and then it gets shipped up to their facility in Thomastown, gets blended, and it sort of comes back to us the next week or even sort of 2 weeks later. So, we talk about keeping things local, and for us, provenance is such an important thing, knowing where all of our products come from. And I've had the team at work say, we can get such and such, we need to make the prawn ravioli, but there's no Australian prawns, can we use these other ones? And I just say absolutely not. If it's not Australian, then we don't use them. And I guess to Julia, that's part of our story. That's
so important.
That's our story, that we can trace all of our ingredients and we know where everything sort of comes from. So I have no problems in telling customers, they often say, gee, gosh, that's expensive, or gee, where did you get that from? And I just say to them, we use premium products. We support all of our local farmers and suppliers. And particularly now more than ever, we need to keep supporting them, because most of them are supplying into the food industry, the food service industry, I should say, restaurants. And, somewhere down the line, we've all lost that business due to COVID. So, really, really important that we try and maintain those relationships. It's so important for us. Without them, I don't have a product. I can't produce, and then you can't go to your grocer and get your lovely spinach and ricotta ravioli. So it really is. It goes round and round, and so important. And now more than ever, if you are in your local store and you see a product that has Yarra Valley on it, or or Victorian, try and choose that over something else that you don't necessarily need to get it from another state or another country. Try and think about really supporting we locals up here in the hills in particular. What I've done here, you can see I've mixed that trout, that goat's cheese, and also some of that ricotta. Now, I'm going to just throw in a bit of chervil, and the smell, if you can only be here to smell this smell, it's fantastic. Just a bit of chervil in that. And also I've got a bit of dill as well. And
what else could you use instead of chervil, Lisa, if you don't have that?
If you don't have any chervil, look, pretty much a really, really lovely parsley is going to do the trick. Sort of hard, I guess, to find things like chervil. Definitely dill. One of the other things that we've got growing wildly is just fennel. Even a bit of chopped up fennel in there is always
Fennel
really
tops.
nice. Absolutely. Fennel tops. Thank you.
Beautiful.
That's the word. Sorry, our virtual zooming is we're cutting out every now and again. The other thing, I'm just going to find something I didn't get out earlier. Oh, the joys of being in your kitchen, hey? Again, just a little bit of lemon in that. Now, the trout is quite intense, I suppose, in flavour. So, just having a bit of a taste of that one. A lot of people say to me, they come and buy this particular ravioli and they say, oh, I don't like goat's cheese. And I say, well, actually, there isn't one flavour that dominates another. All the product that we make, the flavours complement each other. We do one with gorgonzola, prosciutto and dried fig. And some people say, oh, I can't eat blue cheese. And I say, well, actually, it really is a lovely combination. So, don't be afraid to try it. And I seem to get them over the line because they do try it in the end. I'm actually not going to flavour that too much because when I go to make the butter, I use an unsalted butter. So, and the fact that the trout is actually quite flavoursome, I tend to like to keep that a bit milder. So that's why the only thing I'll probably pop into it now is just a bit of pepper. That's probably about it. And again, I haven't made a big mix, so okay.
Do you remember making pasta with your mum? Is that something that you did when you were a young girl, Lisa?
I do remember making pasta with my mum. And again, one of those earliest memories is those progressive dinners. And I would have been so little, and every time there was a family get together, whether it was mum making the lovely, lasagna and she would, hand cut it, or we didn't tend to make a lot of gnocchi. My grandmother would come and we'd make things like cavatelli with the ricotta. But yeah, so with my mum, we made huge, lovely, baked lasagnas and also the cannelloni. And that spinach and ricotta mix that you like, we also make the cannelloni in that as well. So the commercial one we make all for work is a little bit different to the homemade. We use a lot of blanched spinach and, sort of really roughly chopped and a lot more nutmeg. It's a little bit different, but yeah, lots of lovely memories with my mum doing that.
Oh, so good. And that combination of ricotta and nutmeg is incredible.
Definitely, combination of ricotta and nutmeg. And ricotta often is quite wet, so it's really important, obviously, if you're buying it, for those that don't use ricotta, to really drain that well because it can retain moisture. And if you're going to make, say, a baked cannelloni or say a ravioli by hand, if that ricotta is quite wet, you'll find when it cooks it expands and that ravioli can sort of split, and you'll find too in the cannelloni that there's a lot of juice or water that comes out of those. So always sort of keep that in mind that when you're using a ricotta to drain it. Now Jodie at work, she's amazing. She's made me this beautiful parsley, and I think she's done it in sheets. I haven't actually bothered to take it out because I didn't want to dry it out. Now you can see here, this is actually a lasagna sheet or a pasta sheet that already has lots of lemon and lemon zest and parsley through it, and this forms the basis of one of our other products that we retail out, and it's our lemon and parsley linguine. So when we make the ravioli, it also has these flecks through it for lots of reasons, for flavour, and also more importantly for us is to differentiate between, say, a seafood product or a fish product and a vegetable product. I'll just leave that there because I might need it again in a minute. I've got a lot of pasta here, Julie. I should probably send it down to you.
Oh, I would love that.
With the courier.
What is the most popular pasta, Lisa?
Now, I'm just going to make just a little bit. Normally I'd have a piping bag, And you know, I'm not a chef at all. I've just learnt from my mum. I've learnt from the chefs that we've had work with us over the years. I was taught by a chef how to cook food service when he sprained his ankle one morning and said, right, you better hop there and I'll teach you how to cook service. And I couldn't believe it. I think I did about 80 serves. I had to cook pasta and all sorts of things. So I really have learned from some amazing people. I'm just...
I mean, very different of home cooking to, you know, being a chef in the kitchen. It's a different, you know, experience and different flavors. And I think, you know, making pasta for people at home, as a home cook, you really understand, you know, what people want at home and, what is, you know, suited to your customers. Like, you must have, you know, people that come back and back and back to you when you do special.
Yeah, so cooking at home, you know, is a great way, I think, to learn, to socialise. You know, people, particularly with the kids, I find, you know, getting them involved with, you know, making the pasta in particular from scratch. I know just recently on a, you know, dull, dreary day, I got the little cavatelli machine out and I said, right, come on guys, this is what we're doing. And they were just, you know, they loved it. You know, it was as messy as anything. But Rob, my husband, had made a beautiful ossobuco. And all day the kids were walking around saying, what is that smell? Oh my God. And just, you know, the joy that that they gained from, you know, knowing that they had done that themselves, even, you know, when they're making a cake or whatever.
And it's so important to, I think, get kids involved in the kitchen because they really do learn, number one, how much effort goes into cooking. So they appreciate your cooking more, but also for them to become, you know, confident in the kitchen and understanding flavors and, you know, everything from safety in the kitchen to, you know, doing the kitchen, this kind of circle of learning. And I think it stands them in good stead for when they grow up and when they want to cook for their friends or family. Knowing where their food comes from and what's involved in it all, I think is so important.
We had some visitors come up a few years ago, and the young kids were up at my parents' house, and I said, come on, we'll go and have a look at the chickens. And they had never seen chickens before. They didn't know where eggs came from. And I thought, my goodness, you know, such a, and it shocked me, to be honest, that, you know, these kids and people need to know where their food comes from, full stop. And whether it's, you know, growing out of a garden or, you know, from the supplier. I'm just going to make a little one of these. Sorry, I'm off track here, but you can see I've just made some agnolotti. And my goodness, Julia, I have made some of these in my time. Hundreds of them for chefs that, of course, say, oh, you can do that for me. Yeah, of course I can. Hundreds and hundreds of them. Yeah, like, oh, gosh. The permanent sort of...
Yeah, it's so true what you were saying about the, you know, supporting local. And often, you know, as someone who lives in Melbourne, local for us is places like the Yarra Valley where, you know, that's kind of the closest, you know, area where things are grown for us. And I think at the moment, especially, it's a matter of, you know, a small family business being there or not, you know, with our support. So I think now more than ever, like you said, supporting like people like you and all the producers, it has a long trickle down, doesn't it?
I don't want to make too many because I've just got that water boiling, and I'll pop these in. I often find when you're making an agnolotti like this, they're a little bit more fragile. So, you know, you can have really, really rapidly boiling water when you've got say, a dried pasta going. I always say when we're cooking our ravioli, just, you know, simmering water, add a bit of salt. With our ravioli, you might know that we snap freeze them and we preserve them that way by not having to add, you know, lots of breadcrumb, or there's no preservatives in them at all. And that's taken us, you know, a while to educate people on that, because people often associate a frozen product with, you know, frozen chips or frozen whatever. But for us, we, over the years, that's what we've always done. And when Mum would make her, ravioli at home or cannelloni, they weren't just making, 2 or 3 here. They were making enough to, feed all the family. And if there was any left over, they would just pop it in the freezer. We took it a step further years ago, of course, with at work, buying blast chillers and things to, get that product frozen and preserved as soon as possible. And it really does result in, a fantastic product. And I often say, if you're going to bake, if you're going to have some lovely baked bread, or you eat it that day, or you freeze it, you can't sort of let it sit around for a couple of days. It's just never the same. I don't believe. So, ouch, there we go. All right, I think I've just split that one.
I remember when I was in Italy, we made tortellini. That was the kind of the first pasta I learned how to make, and they're the size of your thumb. And we made, I think we made hundreds to freeze, but it took so long. But we had enough tortellini, I think, for 2 months. So it's definitely something, filled pasta especially freezes so well. So
yeah, and we wogs. We don't just make a couple. It's everything's big, and there's always enough. So for us, freezing this product, the most we'll yield in a batch is probably about 120 kilos. So we're not known as a huge producer, but what we make obviously is of quality and substance. So I like to keep it that way, and particularly because I like to control batches. You start getting any bigger than that, and it sort of becomes out of control, I should say. So, okay, I'm going to pop these in, and you can see that probably need to get a bit more water, a bit more boiling here. Let's put that up a bit. If I put them in and it's not boiling properly, it becomes a problem. They're going to sink and they're going to stick together. So I'll just wait a minute there. And in the meantime, I'm going to just, there we go, put my pot on, and we're going to make a burnt butter sauce. Now, again, a lot of flavour in this. There's a lot of flavour. As if you could smell it now, oh, it's amazing. So you can see the mix that I have in the ravioli. It's a little bit different to our commercial brand, because that doesn't have the dill in it, or the what's the other one? What else have I got in there, Julia? Come on.
Shovels.
Thank you very much. Actually, what I should have done was put that in the butter, so I haven't done that very well. Goodness me.
Lisa, how did your mum feel about making, trout and goat cheese aren't really typical flavours, are they? Especially with pasta. Was the mum, she was happy to kind of buck the trend and stay away, go away from tradition to make something that was pretty innovative. Was she, want to stick to tradition, or she kind of mix and match?
My mum was actually, very groovy, my mum. She was always really, really keen to try things. And, she was very energised by, trying new things. And, at the age of 47, deciding I'm going to set up a pasta business in the middle of Hillsville, she was a real goer. So she tried all sorts of things, I remember, making these things, and she'd say, "Oh gosh, that's different. Oh, that's nice." And someone suggested, "Oh, why don't you do put lamb in the filling?" And she said, "Oh God, no, you don't put lamb inside a ravioli. That's the sauce that you would make to put with the gnocchi." She said, there were kind of boundaries, I suppose. Fair enough. But a lot of these flavours that we use, they're again complementary. There isn't anything that's sort of too crazy. The day
No.
we made the ravioli with the prawn, the Australian prawn, and the lemon and dill, you know, that was, I mean, it's a subtle combination, you know, and really worked very well. But I remember Mum saying, oh gosh, prawn in a ravioli, you know, like it was all just as, you know, a little bit different. But you know, she was like really willing to try different things, and you know, yeah, I guess sort of extend out her knowledge, and you know, she always said, you know, have a go. You got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Have a go, and that always sort of gave me the confidence to be able to, you know, muck around with those sorts of things as well. So so you know, Mum was certainly inspired also by you know, by the region and everything that the region had to offer, and you know, working with a lot of these chefs that obviously you know, have a lot to do with you know, other producers, and you know, their minds are you know, very, very creative. So you know, they always sort of found a happy medium, and they were always willing to, you know, sort of help out, I suppose. And they wanted to see us be as successful as well, you know. So things like, you know, when we're making the traditional products and using, you know, beef had to be, you know, beef from the Yarra Valley, or it had to be from a supplier in the Yarra Valley. And one of our, you know, sort of more famous and historical, you know, products is our ravioli filled with free-range chicken and veal. You know, really beautiful. That was made by family, you know, in Italy, and somehow it's kind of made its way back out here. And that's another very popular ravioli that we make. You know, spring now, we are seeing, you know, our ravioli with pea, pecorino and mint. It's got a bit of lemon through it as well, and that's very summery. And typically, you know, this time every year, we are introducing an asparagus filled ravioli. And we source the asparagus mainly from farms down in the Kurirup region. And the asparagus sort of hasn't come on as fast as you know, what we would have liked now, but we'll probably be introducing that into summer. And what we do is we're able to go direct to the farm and get what's called seconds. So they don't need to look beautiful, they just need to have amazing flavour, and they can be any shape or size. And of course, we are blanching them and then processing them into a ravioli. And that particular one is really, really popular amongst chefs to be put onto their menus in the Yarra Valley. And that's asparagus, lemon, and it has toasted almond through it. Really, really lovely and delicious. The other one that we do also is the beetroot. So we roast off a whole lot of beetroot, and again has some lovely mint in it and some feta that we're getting from the dairy. And again, you know, has these fantastic colours and really, really beautiful flavour if you love beetroot. Not everybody likes beetroot. And we do that with some lovely, or I like to cook it with a bit of sort of orange peel, you know, sort of a bit of, as opposed to lemon. We use lemon in a lot of things, but that sort of orange zest, almost like a citrus infused oil or an orange infused oil, just drizzled over the top. Has a real sort of, you know, really big impact, lovely wow factor.
That's quite common in northern Italy, actually, the beetroot ravioli. I've had that maybe in Milan, I think, with a bit of orange and poppy seed, actually.
It's not. It's actually not, no. No, definitely not. You know, from our region, some of the ravioli that they make, obviously always with the cheese. You know, we have had a cousin once that made me a beautiful braised fennel, which was just baked in the oven with a bit of chili and pepper, and that was mixed in with some lovely mascarpone and walnut. That was just amazing, and we often will introduce that into the line for a chef if they want something a little bit different. So we have the capacity to be able to do something like that. But again, going back to, you know, Italy, very, very traditional, dishes. I remember when I went there and we had a picnic in the mountains, and I made a potato salad, and they couldn't believe that you would, eat potatoes cold with, and I had cream, and I'm like, okay, I can't get any sort of creme fraiche, but, and I'm making this thing, and they were like, wow, that's amazing. So, some of the cousins over there are really interested to know what some of these other flavors are and things that we're doing here. So, yeah. All right, I am going to, yes, sorry, you're still talking to me?
I was going to say it's so regional in Italy, like even, something that you have in Sicily, my friends in Florence had never even heard of it. That's how local, I'm always so inspired by how driven they are to, use their local produce and local suppliers, because it's the most, economical, and it just makes sense. You just wouldn't really find someone kind of having, I don't know, like agnolotti in Sicily. It's just, not something that, they don't have a lot of, perhaps, leftover cooked meat. They're making things with tomatoes and olive oil and basil, and, you go even, 20 kilometres up the road and that family makes it a different way, and then, all the way up to northern Italy where it's quite mountainous. That the regionality of Italy is pretty fascinating, and something that I'm so inspired as a Melbourneian, and how we can support local producers, and how important it is to kind of celebrate those things when they are in season, like you're talking about the asparagus and broad beans and things like that.
Yeah. All right, so I've just put in the agnolotti, and I'm going to just make a little butter sauce. Now, often a lot of people will say to me, what do I do with this ravioli? And I say to them, don't do too much to it, because obviously you can see the flavour that's gone inside it. And I see people come into the store in Hillsville and they will grab a trout ravioli and a tomato and basil sauce or a bolognese sauce. And I think, no, and I don't have any qualms in saying you cannot do that. You just can't. I say to people, you are paying for what's inside that ravioli. Don't kill it with anything that's, heavy. So all I'm going to do with this agnolotti now is I've got a bit of butter in the pan, and in the ingredients I actually put the chervil and the dill in it. Now, normally I wouldn't do that, but you can actually, again, put that into the butter, a little bit more lemon zest. If the butter's not salted, then, you can add a little bit of salt into that. I always like to put lemon into it. And some of the other dishes that we do, I use a lot of sage in our butter sauces. So, and I use those for a lot of other things as well. So as that's going, yep, you can hear a sizzle. I don't know if you can hear that from where you are, Julia.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. And butter sauces are my favourite, sage and butter. And what else do you do? Do you herbal sometimes?
Yep, all the time. I use pretty much whatever's going, Actually, I'm not going to need that, am I? I do like parsley, I have to say. Parsley is sort of if I don't have parsley, it's a bit like not having a mobile phone. You think, goodness, it's, that for us. And you were talking about you had parmigiano. I tend to like grana padano. I just find cooking the ravioli, particularly with something like this, it's just a little bit, has that sort of softness to it, whereas, Reggiano can be really, sort of quite sharp. So that's what I like to do. Now, those agnolottis are looking very good. I'm just going to get here we go. All right, let's see how we go here, hey? And again, I'm not going to put them in a strainer. I'm just going to gently lift them out. Always be careful, of course, if that butter's too hot. You don't want too much liquid going into that butter in particular. So a really lovely big slotted spoon or something like that is really, really important. I've got quite a few here. Often too, you know, not a lot of people like to use butter. So I say, you know, again, just a really good quality extra virgin olive oil. Here we go. Let's turn that off. One that I like to actually use is from my friend Umberto Fratelli, and he's up in Yay. Such a character. He makes this with such love. And, you know, I say to him, Umberto, I need some olive oil. You know, can you send me down a case? He says, no. He goes, I send you 2 cases. So I always find myself, you know, buying more than what I need. If you're going to serve this, you know, this butter, it's sort of lovely. A couple of those have fallen apart, you know. And these on a big platter, when we're all out of COVID and we can enjoy, you know, lovely lunches and dinners with our friends. These are absolutely superb. You can see how they've expanded a little bit as well. So I'm not quite sure on my presentation there. How do they look?
That's amazing.
Yeah, they're really yummy. I possibly could have put a bit more filling in them. Yeah, you can see how that's sort of split a little bit there. So, but these on a platter, absolutely delightful. And you only need a couple of them. So as I said, if you didn't want to use butter, there you go. You know, again, you could put a little bit of grated Parmesan over it if you wanted. They're probably a little bit flat, and then just a little bit of, there you go. Some black pepper if you wanted, but you know, they're pretty, again, pretty wholesome, pretty tasty. So, there you go. Doesn't look too bad, does it?
They look beautiful, Lisa.
Yeah, they're really yummy.
Yay, I want to try one. We should swap through the camera.
Well, hopefully when this COVID thing ends and, you know, the restrictions have eased, we will have lots of visitors up here, and
definitely,
you know, a lot of the restaurants, you know, are serving these types of beautiful dishes, and you know, supporting us and by putting these sorts of products on their menu. So yeah, but you know, if you're not out eating this, you can buy it from any of the providors that we're supplying to as well. So yeah, so cheers, Julia. I hope we get to see you here in Hillsville.
Cheers, Lisa.
Bring your family, and your husband can teach me some Japanese cooking.
Yeah.
I would love that.
I really cannot wait to get up there. You know, my 5-year-old is just dying to go to the zoo in Hillsville. It's his favourite zoo. So we're got a trip as soon as restrictions are eased. We'll come and grab some pasta. Yeah. Can't wait to get to some wineries too. We've been really hanging out for it down here in Melbourne.
Definitely. Good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
And I can't wait to try that. I've never tried the smoked trout pasta, so I can't wait to try that too.
Okay. Sounds good. Let me know how you go.
I will.
All right. Thanks so much, Julia.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. We hope you have enjoyed our segment with the garden party. We hope that you get to come out here and join us again very, very soon. The Yarra Valley is very, very quiet without you. Don't forget to click for Vic, and in particular go to the regional pantry. The regional pantry has a huge array of Yarra Valley products that are available for purchase, and each of the producers has their own way of shipping the product to you. So we really do hope that you get on board. We need you, and we really hope that you can support us and enjoy all of the wonderful products and produce that we have for you. Thank you. Cheers.